Right. Thank you, everybody, for being here on this beautiful, warm, unusually warm day. I appreciate your dedication to your field and that you're here with us today. And I'm super excited to have Matt with us. Matt is one of my colleagues from the curriculum team at the ESC, and he is our tech specialist, tech guru. He definitely made one of my presentations for earlier today look much more professional than my original slides looked. So I'm very appreciative of his skill set and knowledge and his willingness to be with us here today. I know AI is a hot topic, and we talked about it a little bit at the last meeting, and that's how this came about, with you wanting to learn more. And I know OFLA just had a session on AI as well, and it was pretty well attended. So with that, I am so excited to introduce Matt Mays, who is our tech guru, and he's going to talk to us about AI in the classrooms. So Matt, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dana. You're throwing out a lot of big terms here, like guru and expert and all these other things. I'm none of those things. I'm just a fan of technology. So happy to be here with all of you. Thanks so much for having me. As you are looking at your agenda, if you scroll down here underneath section 2, you're going to see a link to the slide deck. And if you would like to join me on there, there are a bunch of links to other things and some jumping off points. You are more than welcome to make a copy of this slide deck, do with it as you please, share it with your friends and colleagues. This is yours to do with as you please. So if you would like to join me there, then that will take you to a presentation that looks something like this. All right. So as Dana said, the thing that is consuming most of my time, especially this year, is AI. I've been fortunate enough to visit many school districts this year to talk about AI and just kind of like put everyone's mind at ease, try and bring everyone up to speed a little bit on AI and what it's capable of and what it's not capable of. And so I'm really happy to come here to talk about AI with all of you, not just in the world language setting, but as an educator, as a professional, as a functioning adult. There are some really cool features and things that we can do. So I wanted to frame this conversation really as like a refresh, because for many of us, I'm sure that we have at least seen some things that AI can do. I'm going to go into it a little bit and show you just kind of the ins and outs of some of the more popular ones. But please, by all means, at any point in time, if you have questions about anything, go ahead and pop those into the chat, or feel free to unmute. I'm super informal. I'm just happy to be here with all of you. So if unmuting and shouting those questions out works for you, then that works perfectly for me too. Okay, so let's go ahead and get rolling. Here's the why. So the big problem that I'm seeing more than anything is there's just so much out there, right? The AI tools that are out and available, there are tons of tools. And the thing that I'm seeing more often than not is that it's not just like, some companies have it and some companies don't. It's really that like every company is trying to have one, and they are by no means equal. So for us as those consumers, it's really difficult to tell what are the good products and which ones aren't, and how can we really maximize our time and effort so that it's not one more thing, so that this is a collaborator for you to make your life even easier. Okay, so that's really the why for this conversation. Obviously, we know that AI is that game changer, for education. It's our thought partner, so we definitely have that in the background. But really what I'm here for is to help you kind of sift through all of the mess that AI has created and find those proven winners. Okay, so here's where we're going to spend most of our time. Should be about the next half hour or so, maybe a little bit longer. And these are the places where we're going. So we're going to talk a little bit about AI as just a general overview. We're going to talk about one of my favorite tools, which is Magic School. We're going to kick it around the web a little bit to talk about some of my other favorites. I just called it like the best of AI. We'll dip a little bit into academic integrity and how important that may be for your classroom, as well as just opening it up for a Q&A. So lots of good stuff here to cover. okay? But where do we begin? So if you are fresh, brand new to AI, you've never seen it before, and you're looking for the full presentation, like let's spell it all out, give me all the bells and whistles, this presentation is for you. So you should be able to click on this slide. If you look in the speaker notes, I've also linked to it. This is my like AI like text. This has everything. You are getting the best of the best, the Cliff Notes version of this today. But if you're really looking for that over the top view, then this slide deck is for you. Okay. And what AI has done for us, you know, as educators, just like all the other tools that we've seen come about in the past, there are really good features, and then there are some other things that we definitely want to consider as we're looking to use it for our own classroom. So what can AI do for us? Really helpful things. We're looking at things like content generation, right? I always find that as I'm looking at starting a project, I know what I want to say and I know how I want to communicate it, but just like getting the ball rolling and actually like getting started on it is always a major hurdle for me. So having AI as this thought partner to help me create wonderful things for my classroom is unbelievable, right? It's almost like an unprecedented time in education. You don't need to go to that next classroom over. You don't need to contact another friend in a different district. You have this sounding board that you can pose questions to, that you can use as that thought partner to generate all kinds of wonderful things for your classroom, such as you know, classroom materials from scratch. Like you can ask AI to create stories and it will, you know, include all the details that you want to have included. You can do summaries and presentations and worksheets and quizzes and handouts and every other thing that you may be doing in your classroom, whether that's like assessments and rubrics and answer keys, or whether that's just like, I need a 2-sentence summary of this text. It can do all of those things. We also look at things like language support. So I use that as kind of like the blanket text, and I know that this definitely means something different for the group of educators that we have on the call today. But AI is capable of doing all kinds of tasks when it comes to language. So it can provide summaries, it can rewrite text in different ways, it can level text, it is capable of, like I said, creating things from scratch. You can provide text to the AI tools and ask it to plus it, you know, to provide different ways to say the same thing, to look for proofreading and writing suggestions, vocabulary building, and all kinds of other language related tasks. And more than anything, AI is really creating this world in which we have a hyper personalized classroom experience. So by this, I mean, let's say that you have 2 students, right? And student A loves dogs and student B loves cats. Using AI, you could say, we're doing a math problem and my kids are learning, you know, single digit addition. I want to be able to create a word problem for this specific student based on dogs and this specific student based on cats. Whereas before, you know, we would have to go through all the motions and we would have to create all these things from scratch. Whereas now we can create those personalized touches for our students, or we can create, you know, opportunities where students are completing projects or completing their work and they're getting a hyper specialized rubric that can assess whatever the project is that they're doing, which is really, really cool. Now, with all of these wonderful things, also comes some other things that we want to be mindful of. Okay, the first of which is academic integrity. We're going to talk about that later on in our meeting, but with all of the good, it's also never been easier to take information and manipulate it and make it seem as though it's from your own brain or your own mind. So we definitely want to be mindful of those academic integrity concerns. And like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. We also want to be mindful of the inaccuracies and the biases that AI tools inherently have. So the hyper nerds who are creating these tools, I say that lovingly, I am one of them, the people that are creating these tools know that the tools are inherently biased, right? They are capable of lying. They are capable of producing misinformation. And what's really tricky is for many of our students, they're not adept at figuring out what is true from what is false. And so, we're seeing these instances where our students are using AI, they're turning their work in or they're showing it to somebody else, and now it's spreading misinformation that they didn't necessarily mean to include, but they're citing things that aren't actually true. So the inaccuracy piece is really, really big. Now, what we're also seeing is the more affluent districts or students from more affluent homes are at a greater advantage using AI as compared to less affluent students. It's just become more of like a cultural basis. They have the tools that are available to them. Their parents are more likely to either be using these tools themselves or setting up the opportunities for their students or their families to see it. And it's creating this disconnect where students who are in disadvantaged situations aren't getting those same opportunities to work with these tools. So as we're looking at that, we know that this is much easier. AI tools make it much easier to put out things like hate speech and biased opinions and all these misinformation pieces. So it's definitely something that you want to be mindful of, especially if you're going to use these tools with students. Okay, and last, one of our big pushes here from our office and from Spark, who's our ITC, is data privacy. You have to assume that whatever you put into an AI tool, whatever information you are including as a part of your prompt, is 100% going to be seen by someone else. It's just the idea that you have to go into it with so that you are protecting yourself on the back end. This means that things like specific IEPs or like behavior plans or other things that you want to keep private, they need to stay private, because ultimately you're not necessarily talking to we think the computer is like this robot, right? Our AI robot. That's not the case. Basically, when you put something through on these AI tools, they become a part of that greater matrix of information that the tool is using to provide answers. And those are being made available to the developers who are using these AI tools. So if you say Joe Smith is using or is on an IEP, and here are his specific target areas that we're looking at, there is the potential that someone not within your district who should not know that information can see that information and connect it back up to that student. We definitely don't want that. So make sure that you are protecting yourself, make sure that you're protecting your students, keep all of those things separate. If you're using or if you want to use AI to do specific tasks like that, just keep everything super general. So say a student has an IEP with X, Y, and Z, and be as generic as possible so you don't get yourself into trouble. All right. So this is brand new, hot off the presses today. You are the first group of people to hear this, and if you were following along on Twitter, which I'm sure you weren't, because why would you? There is a new name for Google Bard. Today they decided that it would no longer be called Bard, that it is now going to be called Gemini. Why they made the change, I don't know. They probably thought it was a good idea. I'm here to tell you that I think it stinks. Gemini is way harder to say than Bard. I like a single syllable, it knocks it out a little bit quicker, but what do I know? So there are two name brands when it comes to AI. Okay, the first of which absolutely burst onto the scene last year, that's ChatGPT. In my mind, they have basically become like the Kleenex of the tissue game, right? When somebody's talking about AI, their default brain is kind of going to ChatGPT. Google, like they are known to do, trying to get into that game, trying to corner their own market, put out their own tool. And like I said, theirs is now called Gemini. For my money, they're pretty much the same exact thing, or they're capable of doing pretty much the same thing. So if you have never seen it before, I'm going to jump over to ChatGPT just so that way you can kind of get a sense for what is available to you. Essentially, this is what it looks like. There's this big white space here on the right, and it is prompting me now by saying, how can I help you today? So down here at the bottom, you can type in anything you want to, and it will start that task. So you can see some examples of things that they're giving you. And you can even see over here on the side, like a history of the things that you have done. So if you'll notice up top here, let's say you wanted to write a Valentine love poem to your significant other, which is a thing that I did the first year that my wife and I were dating. And here we are 24 years later, and now I still have to do that every year or else I get into trouble. So let's say that this was a thing that you actually wanted to do. You could type in the prompt. And for me, I think I said, like, you've been married to the love of your life for 10 years and you are writing her a love poem for Valentine's Day. Please write a poem for her using a 4-line rhyme scheme, right? You can see I'm being very specific on the things that I'm looking for. And then ChatGPT was like, no problem, I got you. Here's this poem that you could use. It's not good. I'm not using it. This is just an example. But you can see those differences. You can see those intricacies. Now, at any point in time, I can jump back into any of my previous conversations as well. So let's say that I wanted to jump back into this one here, those fun stops on a road trip. And now all of a sudden, I'm back into my conversation that I had this summer where my family was traveling from Canton to Cincinnati to see my college roommate and then on to Pigeon Forge so that we can see Dolly. I love Dollywood. So it was able to produce those kinds of stopping points for me along the way as well, which is really, really neat. So like I said, as a basis for AI tools, this is pretty much what it's about, okay? Now, I also want to show you, I almost said Bard, I want to show you Gemini, which is, for most purposes, almost exactly the same. It just looks a little bit like cosmetically different. So it's the same general setup. You can see it says enter your prompt down here. It gives you a couple examples. If we wanted to, we can expand this menu over and you can see some of those recent things that I've done here. But for the most part, it's almost exactly the same. I've done tests where, like, I wanted to see, you know, what will it give me on this one versus what will it give me on this one. It's almost the same thing. So it's really just, you know, 6 one way, half dozen the other. Whatever you like the best is the one that I would encourage you to test out for yourself. Okay. Has anyone tested these out just by quick little show of hands or emoji hands or anything like that? All right, cool. Very cool. All right, good. So hopefully this isn't super new, but at least it's nice to kind of see what's out there and to see some of those available features. Okay, now what I'll tell you is we are terrible at using AI. This is universal. This is myself included. We have basically been trained for the last 25, almost 30 years now on how to use a search engine, right? And so, you know, back when we were doing our, our dog piles and our Ask Jeeves, right? We were trying to craft all of these, different sentences or different plays on words so that, you know, Google or whoever, whatever search engine we were using would give us the stuff, right? AI does not work that way. So it's really important that we hone in our skills on proper prompting. This is what's going to set you apart from random Joe educator or random Jane educator, and really allow you to get the most that you can possibly get out of an AI tool. All right. So the real difference here is you have to be specific, not just in the words that you're including, but also the role that you want AI to perform for you. So the very first thing you'll want to do as you're creating that prompt is to define the role that you want AI to assume. So if you'll remember back to my example, I told AI who I wanted it to be. You are a person who has been married to the love of your life for 10 years, right? I set that table for the AI to understand. And then define the task that you want the AI to accomplish for you. So I said, I want you to write a poem for me, right? So you are this person, or you are thinking in this way, and I want you to do this thing. And then last is when you can sprinkle in all of those other details that's going to make it hyper specific for you. So this is much different than the way that we've traditionally done our Google searches, where we just put in a few terms and ta-da, we get millions of results. Using this three-part prompting method, we are getting hyper specific, right? So the idea is that we don't want to have to sift through those millions of responses. I just want the thing. Okay, so AI is going to help give me the thing much easier if I follow these three prompting methods. Okay. Um, so think of ways that you can modify. And if you look at the speaker notes of this slide, you'll see some different ways that you can craft your words to get those helpful things that you're looking for. So things like, translate or create multiple choice or free response, or, I want you to rewrite, or I want you to differentiate this text, or I want you to write it as if you are this grade, right? Be as specific as you can possibly be, and you will get much more bang for your buck. All right, so as we're looking at prompting, right, this is an example from 7th grade math. I used 3 different platforms, our ChatGPT, our Gemini, and Magic School. Okay, and Magic School is something that we're going to talk about here in just a moment. But basically, if you wanted to, you could click on any one of these links, and this is going to jump you into, or at least give you a view of the conversation that I was having with the AI tools at that time. So again, this is just an opportunity for you to kind of see, apples to apples here as we're comparing across the board. So you can see my prompt, and then you can see the questions that were generated, as well as their answer key. So that one there is for ChatGPT, and this one here is for Bard, and that'll pop up here in just a moment. And we see those different options, right? What's nice about this is like, I'm not just using one tool. I'm not just putting all of my eggs in one basket. What we're seeing is, for many of these tools, they are starting to come out with like paid features or like supercharged features, right? So I want you to, consider this as not just a, not just like, I'm only going to use this or I'm only going to use that. I like that you would want to, at least I hope you would want to, kind of color in a whole bunch of different coloring books, or use a bunch of these AI tool sandboxes to try and find all of these, be as helpful as you can possibly be with them. So what's really nice about these tools is, the ones that I'm showing you, I'm sharing with you here, they are all free. Magic School has a paid option. ChatGPT has a paid option. Depending on your level of Google, certain features become available to you. But basically, I typically operate with the idea that if it's free, it's for me. So, so that's why I wanted to share these with you, and I have a whole bunch of other good ones to share with you here in just a couple moments too. All right.
Matt, I think, Allison, I don't know if you were raising your hand that you had tried that before. You have a question? Oh, she's good. Okay. That was
Yep.
raising your hand earlier.
Yeah, that's okay. I clocked it a little bit ago. I'm glad you said something though. Okay, so I'm not going to take up your time on clicking through those and exploring those further. Like I said, I just wanted you to be able to see that basically these are the 3 that I like, and so that you could kind of, like I said, compare across the board though. Okay. Now, before I continue, there are some really cool features that I should mention. For what I just showed you, there's the ability to like hand off, right? So I'm really big on collaboration and making it as easy as possible for everybody. So the idea that I can start something or I can generate something and take it as far as I want to take it, I can then export that and share that with someone else, a fellow teacher, either in my district or somewhere else. And now they can take it in the direction that makes sense for them, right? It's a really nice and easy way to collaborate and make sure that you're sharing things with your friends around you. So that's really fun. We're seeing that become like enhanced across all of these tools, but we're also seeing, especially with Magic School, the ability to like export into other items, as in like, I want to create a quiz, a 10-question quiz for my students. There is an enterprise paid feature in Magic School that you click one button and all of a sudden that is now a Google form, which is really helpful. We're also going to talk a little bit about Diffit. Diffit is the same way. So it will allow you to use some of their exporting templates, but to get all of their full exports, it's a paid feature. So like I said, I think that there is enough out there that is free and wonderful that you can get by and do a lot of really wonderful things without having to pay. But for the most part, these aren't like super expensive. So if that was a thing that you wanted to check out, then you could absolutely do that too. Okay. If you are new to AI, or if you're searching for other things that the AI tools might be able to do for you, then check out this prompt library. I think this is really neat. Basically, it boils down that conversation we were having there a moment ago about prompting into really specific tasks. So you can see like all the prompts that are available, and then you can see like now we're starting to look at different roles within a district, or we're starting to look at different tasks that a teacher can complete. And this again is just one more thing that can make this whole wild idea of AI even easier for us. So as you're starting to think of like, well, how might I be able to use this? This is definitely a great place to go. And honestly would be a good place to kind of have a group conversation about either during this meeting or in the coming months too. So there's a lot to love about that little database. That's just one of many that are out there, but I think the way that that's organized is really slick. All right, before we continue, are there any questions up to this point? What AI can do for you, or what is available? This is that proper wait time, awkward silence. It's even more awkward when you're on virtual calls. All right, we'll keep on trucking. Let's talk about Magic School. So just off the top, I need you to know that I'm an ambassador for Magic School. I'm a part of their trainer program. When I saw this last spring, I identified this really quickly as like they're doing it really well. Essentially, they have a whole bunch of teachers on their staff, and they have created these specialized tools within Magic School to help you complete a whole bunch of tasks. So basically, as we think back to this conversation in that proper prompting, right? Magic School is doing the heavy lifting on step 1 and step 2. And all you have to worry about is adding in those additional details. So if you wanted to, you could watch the video if that's something new to you. I'm going to share this with you here just real quick. But basically, this is what Magic School looks like. I heard someone say the other day that they found it overwhelming, and I hope that some of their filtering tools will lessen that for you. So if you were to scroll down, you would see almost 70 tools that are available to you for different tasks that a teacher might want to complete. And what's nice is that they're actually listening to their educator community. So if someone says, hey, I'm looking for a 5E lesson plan model that I want to include, for my classroom, or this is a thing that I do a lot, it'd be really swell if there's a tool that can do it, then they'll work to make that tool and add it here. As we look at the top, you'll see some different filters that I can do. So again, it's going to take that, almost 70 tools, and it's going to narrow that scope down much more. You'll see that I've given some of these stars. That's why we see those here first. And then I have the ability to change the order of these as well. So if I click on this, then I can kind of drag and drop things where I want them. But if I hit planning, then it's going to narrow down all of the tools that are available that may help a teacher plan for their classroom. If I hit content, these are the ones that are all based on content generation, and so on and so on. For me, for my money, this is the best one that's out there. Like I said, if I have to think less about creating that perfect prompt and think more about, just help me make clear directions or help me create my lesson plan, then that's a good day in my book. So the way that this works then is, let's say that we want to do exemplar and non-exemplar. I just have to tell it my grade level. We can pick anyone we want. I have to tell it the standard or objective, or I can tell it that standard or objective. So you can be as specific as you want to be. You can actually like copy the standard or objective from, the Ohio State standards and paste it in there. And then you can shoot for your length or your criteria for success, and then give it even more specific details in that assignment prompt. So I'm going to click on exemplar up here at the top. This is open and available to all of you, which I think is really nice. And it is going to populate those areas for me. Now, what I'll do is come down and hit generate, and then we'll see underneath as this exemplar and non-exemplar is being generated for me. So as I'm thinking about opportunities for world language, this is a really fun opportunity to kind of use some of those words or use some of the scenarios that are available and create, this is what it might look like, or this is what it might not look like. So really, really great, really wonderful. Because I am an enterprise, I have a few things that you may not have. I know that they've like extended the like trial window a little bit. So you may see things on my screen that are not available to you, like this ability to export things out. We also see like this copy button, which that's universal. That should be up for everybody. We also see share, which should be universal and open for everybody. But what's important here is I want you to understand that no matter what tool we're using, AI is really just a conversation, right? It's not that old school Google search where I just take what it gives me and that's it, right? Think of your AI use like a conversation in that it gives me the thing, I ask it more questions. It gives me, a modified version, I give it more detail to make it more specific, and so on and so on and so on, until you are satisfied with the thing that you are actually seeing in front of you. So don't stop with the very first thing that it gives you. Continue to pull and prompt and ask for further modifications. All right, kicking it around here to some of my favorite tools. You'll see the stars here. The very first one is the reason why I joined this educator community with Magic School. This is how I knew that they were really doing it well. This is a tool for AI resistant assignments, meaning the AI is helping you to outsmart your students who are going to try to use AI to complete it, which is awesome. So this is what I see more often than not. A lot of like real world things, which I know sounds weird coming from me, who's this technology professional, but I'm here telling you that any opportunity you can take to bring your students back into the real world and off of their devices and off of their computers is a good day in my book. So make sure that you're checking that one out. I really, really like that. Other things, I mentioned the clear directions. In the space where there should be 10 words, I have the tendency to put like 50 because words are fun and you might as well sprinkle them all over the place. But I need that clear direction. So really love that tool. We also see the assignment scaffolder. We also see multi-step assignments, which is really cool. The relevancy tool, which is fun. So basically you give it a topic or something that you're talking about in your class, and it connects it to the life of your students. We see a text scaffolder where basically you say the grade and it creates different levels or different versions of that thing. We also see like really fun things like the class newsletter. It helps you generate those. We see the IEP generators and our behavior intervention suggestions. There's a tool on here for YouTube video questions, which is really cool. You provide the YouTube link, and then it basically understands the text that is generated or that is actually spoken in the video. And then it creates questions based off of that with specific timestamps and answers. So the one thing I want to mention is it's looking at that like closed captioning or what would be developed in the closed captioning. It's not able to, at least not at this moment, it's not capable of like watching the video or watching a process and then creating questions based off of that. So let's say that the video is like how to do a recipe, like let's say like how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. If it's just like music playing in the background, but there's no one saying, first you find your loaf of bread, you take out 2 slices, put those 2 slices on a plate, put peanut butter on here. If somebody isn't narrating that, then it's not going to be able to generate questions for you. So I just want you to see that there's that little bit of a disconnect. Make sure that what is spoken or what is being said in your video actually matches with the things that you're trying to create questions for. Okay, we also see things like an email family tool. We have an email responder tool. There is a thing for multiple explanations on how to do the same exact thing, which I think is wonderful, especially in this setting with our teachers here on the call. Social stories, again, another one that would be excellent to use for world language as we're trying to have students understand, you know, the different things that might be happening around them, but putting it into, you know, cultural context, that would be wonderful. We see text rewriters and student work feedback and levelers and unit plan generators and all these other really wonderful tools, not to mention all the ones that I didn't mention here down below. I got to the point where I was like, ooh, favorite this and favorite that and favorite this and favorite that. And I was favoriting everything. And when you favorite everything, you've essentially favorited nothing. So I had to cut myself off at some point. But there is so much to love about Magic School. Okay, let's jump back then to our slide deck. And before we continue, are there any questions about Magic School or things that you've seen? Like I said, it's free for everybody, but they have that like enterprise version, that little plus up. So I don't plan on paying for it when my enterprise access runs out. Like I said, they're giving that to us as a part of the educator community, but I don't plan on paying for it. I don't think you need to. Shelly, let's see. We said, do we have time to actually look at a social story? Sure. Can you give me an example and we'll dig into one while I pull that up? If you either unmute and say one, or if you want to type something in, or if somebody has something on their mind that they would want to include, I'd be happy to do that.
I was just thinking about our ELL students and how they might not understand a holiday we're about to have, like President's Day. Can it give us a story that helps them understand that?
That's an excellent idea. So is it okay if I just shoot for the middle, like 7th grade, 6th grade? Or would you want me to be more specific with a certain grade?
How about a 9th grade student with a 3rd grade reading level? Can it be that specific?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to 3rd grade, just so that way it starts there at the base level, if that makes sense. So it'll be, we will get better results if we start there, knowing that our student is already at that level. We could also like create the social story here, and then we could go to that text leveler, provide the text that is generated in this tool into that text leveler, then it will create those scaffolds for us, okay? So let's see what we can say. Social situation, event, or a party. It's giving this in the gray text is just an idea. So let's say, please explain the origins and role that President's Day plays in American culture. Okay, and we'll see what's set up. All right, so this is basically creating a scenario in which like they are assuming the role of an actual student. So in this example, they're calling themselves Sarah, and I'm going to tell you about President's Day. It's a special holiday in America, and it's a day to honor and remember our leaders, and so on and so on. I'm not going to read this all to you, but for the most part, coming up with it from scratch is pretty nice. Now, again, if you see any pieces and parts of this that you don't like, you don't have to be the one to actually create or to change this text. You can further the conversation and keep asking those questions and keep asking those prompts in order for it to kind of shape that conversation that you're really looking for. Okay, excellent idea though, Shelly. Thank you so much for asking. All right, if there are no other questions, just for time's sake, I'm going to go ahead and jump forward here. And this is what I'm just calling the best of the rest. So in the full version, I have like 3 or 4 slides that look just like this one. And it's like word vomit all over the screen. It's too much. There's too much to share. So what I wanted to do was try to boil this down as much as possible to give you like the absolute best in each of these different categories. Now, my favorite, or the one that I'm going to speak to, has been highlighted in red, but that doesn't mean that the ones below it or above it are any better or worse. It's just ones that kind of caught my eye. All right, so the first one that I want to talk about is Magic Studio within Canva. This is not for this meeting, it's for a different one, but Canva is like my single favorite tool that's out there. I use it every day. It's awesome. My wife, who just walked into the room, is an actual, like, legit, went to college graphic designer, and she would hate it if I told you all of that, and how much I love it, because she just thinks it's adorable, the little things that I create on here, knowing that she's actually an expert who's working in this field. But it's awesome, and the things that it can do are wonderful. So if you're interested in learning more, definitely let me know. But Canva has come out with their own tool called Magic Studio. And so really, Magic Studio is available to help you create and manipulate photos. So as we're thinking of, in world language specifically, as we're thinking of, how much time has to go into finding examples of, like, real world things, right? You could use something like you could use something like Canva's magic tools in order to create some of those things for you. So some of the things that it can do, basically, they have text to image on Canva here. So you can say something like, I want a picture of Abraham Lincoln riding a Tyrannosaurus Rex while eating a cheeseburger, and it will create that thing for you. You can take a picture like the ones that you're seeing here on the screen, and you can say, I want this image to actually be a document, and it'll do that. Or I want you to take this document and make it a slide for a presentation, and it can do that for you as well. Some other really cool things, you're seeing like text to video, which I've played with a little bit. It's really wild. We see that prompt here for the text to image where you're creating things from scratch. Magic Expand is really wild. So essentially, imagine I'm going to see if I can get it to do it again. So as I'm scrolling down, it's expanding because it knows that I'm here now. But imagine that your picture is just this girl with a little bit of blue sky. Using Magic Expand, it is basically using the AI tool to take a guess at, like, what would be above and below and to each side of this individual, and it creates that picture, which is bonkers. Now, I want you to know too that these are all like at a very basic, very primitive level. So you're going to see some things that you're like, that doesn't look like a person at all, or it's cutting off that person's foot, or that person only has half a shoe, right? So there are going to be weird little things from time to time, but those, I mean, from where we are now to where I know it's going to go, is just going to be crazy. We also see things like Magic Edit, which is over here on the side. So basically, you can take any component and you can place it into anything else that you want. You can also use this tool here, which they call Magic Eraser, and get rid of things that are in pictures. The background remover has been on there for quite some time. I'm trying to think of, there's one other example that I'm not sure if they have it here or not. But basically, if the person is let's say holding a dozen flowers, and you would rather that person be holding a microphone, you can use the Canva tools to have it switch out for you so that you don't have to lift a finger, which is really, really wild. So if you're interested in more of those creativity tools, definitely check out some other ones that are there on the list. In terms of productivity, I know, if I'm not mistaken, this group has talked a little bit about Diffit in the past. For my money, Diffit and Magic School work really, really well together. Diffit, as in differentiation, that's where the name is generated from, will help you to create things from scratch, will help you to create like assessments on different levels and vocabulary lists, and translate into multiple languages. It can take like PDFs, or it can take documents, or it can take websites and generate all kinds of content based off of that. It's just a really nice package. Some other ones that are down there are some ones that you may be hearing teachers talk about, like Twee and Claude and Teachermatic and My Lesson Pal, all really wonderful. Again, I'm not going to pay for anything, so using all of these tools in concert together, I think, works really well. Okay, we see some music tools as well. We're not going to go into those. we see down below where it says learn more, I wanted to put some guides, some websites that you could go to learn more, because obviously I have a very short amount of time with you here today. But if you wanted to expand upon that, those are definitely some places to go. We're going to talk about academic misconduct in a minute, but if you were looking for other resources there, I have those in the middle. And then as you're thinking about AI and like what it's capable of at the moment, I wanted to include some fun too, right? So these are what I just called like the game playground. And the game that I directed you to here is called Say What You See. And this is really based on the idea of that careful prompting. This uses Google Arts and Culture, which is really cool. So basically the idea is it's going to give us a picture, and then we have to figure out what the prompt was that generated that image. So for this first round, I think we have to get like a really low level match, so like a 50% match. So in this example here, it's basically saying, in order to get a picture just like this, we would want to include information about the medium, so that's a painting, of the subject, in this case it's a dog, and the context is standing in a field, and that's how this was generated. So I know the first one that it's going to say, oh no, they changed it. That's good. It was like a color one and it didn't make any sense before, but they changed it up to this. So the idea is we're going to use this box over here on the side, and in 120 characters, we have to figure out a prompt that would get us at least a 50% match to this horse statue that we see over here on the left. So just for time's sake, I'm going to say something like bronze statue of horse facing the left with its front left leg in the air, and we'll see what we get. Okay, and so again, it's generating my prompt off the off the things that I produced for it, and that's pretty solid, right? So you can see mine was an 82% match, just as it's looking and comparing those different images, and then it's giving you some tips. So like I said, this is a really nice way to think about prompting and how you can craft your prompts. It's a really fun one to use with students as well. And there's just a lot to like. So down here in the bottom corner, you can see it says next, and then we can continue on with even more of this wonderful game. But again, for our time's sake, I'll let you guys do that one on your own. Okay, there's some other games here that I think are really cool, like Scribble Diffusion. The idea of that game is you do an actual drawing on your computer, you give it just a 1 or 2 sentence prompt, and then it creates your drawing as the actual thing, which is really fun. Odd One Out is a great game as you're trying to help students contextualize, like, what does AI even look like in our real world? Essentially, the way that this game works is it shows you 4 pictures, and then you have to sniff out the fake. So let's go into the game here, and it's timed. Again, this is connected to Google Arts and Culture. And let's see what we see. All right, so find the AI aloe. Is that one? Nope. There we go. So I got it on my second try, which is cool. But again, connecting this to the real world, these are actual pictures or actual paintings that we can find in some art gallery spread throughout the world. So this is giving us further context for these things. Again, taking it back here to the world language, right? These aren't just American, these are all over the world that we're seeing these pieces. And if for whatever reason I said, wow, that's really interesting, I never thought about this one before, you could click on it and it's going to take you to the Google Arts and Culture page that is specific to this painting, that tells you all of the information, including the painter in this instance, as well as where you can find it in the world, which I think is really, really fun. Really engaging for kids, especially as they're trying to make sense of what is real and what is fake and how good some of these fakes can be. All right, so some other tools there, some other games there, definitely a lot for you to dig into in the coming weeks, coming months, through the summer, through next year, a lot to dig into. Yeah, I wanted to take a minute here, and Dana, I could use your help on this. One of the things that we spoke of in the lead up to the meeting was the idea that you might want to create images or have images generated for you, based on some of the things that you might be using in your class. Dana, could you speak to the specifics of that a little bit more for me?
Yeah, so I think because my memory is a little foggy, but because we met right after our last meeting that we had, Matt and I and Megan met together to talk about some of the world language needs and everything. So I can't remember, Matt, maybe you can help me with this. If this was an example of there were images and then AI created a text and then it was able to differentiate by proficiency level. But I seem to remember something, and Matt, maybe you can help me on this. I seem to remember there being something like maybe it was the images, and I can't remember the context of
That's
this.
okay.
Megan
Yeah,
couldn't be with us today.
yeah, no worries. So the idea is that there are more complex things, or we want our students to be able to find some of the different leveled items that are in the text above. And so based on what they were able to pull out or what they were able to find within the text, they could then connect it to the images that are below. So it's obviously a time-consuming struggle to try and make your way through not only creating these texts, but also finding images online that can connect to them. So an idea might be using something like, Canva's magic tools, using some of the other image generator, AI generators that are out there to put in some of those terms to actually get those really specific, really nice images that could go along with the text that you see above there. So again, just one nice, easy way that you can kind of cut to the chase of finding some of these things and helping connect it back to the work that your students are doing. All right. All right. So just a couple more parts here. You guys are doing great. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to shout them out. I wanted to include this as it becomes more embedded in our culture. We want to have our students understand what is and is not okay within our classrooms. This is no different than everything else we've had come our way, like cell phones, like the calculator before it, like I'm sure the abacus back in the day was blowing teachers' minds, like you can't use that in my classroom, right? This is nothing new. We just have to set the table for our students so that they understand the context of the tool that they may or may not be using. So I really like this handout. This is from Vicki Davis, who does a website called Cool Cat Teacher. She is definitely that. But it's a really nice way to kind of set the table for your students to help them understand when it is and when it is not okay for them to use AI within your classroom. This is a conversation that you should be having with the people that you teach with, because obviously we know our students and we know that they're probably going to use this as leverage against us. They'll say something like, well, Mr. Mays lets us use AI in his classroom. Ms. Weber, why don't you let us use it in here? This is ridiculous, right? We know that those things are coming. And so having these defined rules ahead of them can definitely help you within those conversations, okay? The long and short of it is our kids are using AI. Especially in our older grades. I think we're seeing that a little bit more than our younger grades. But as we continue, learning and adapting to AI, and it becomes more part of our culture, then we're going to see that rise, right? We know that our younger students likely have siblings that are older that are using it. We also see, they're going to be riding the bus, they're interacting with these kids, they're on, God forbid, like TikTok and all the other crazy places that they shouldn't be in the world, and they're seeing these things being used. It's up to us as educators, unfortunately, to try and help them contextualize that for the world, right? We can't rely on some of these other areas in order to help them understand what an impact this can have on their lives, not just their education, but their lives. And so I wanted to include this stat. I know that it deals with college students, but I think this is translatable to K-12 as well. But the study found that nearly half of college students last fall were using the AI tools, but fewer than a quarter of the faculty members were using them. So again, there's this disconnect. Typically, our kids do things, and then we as educators try to catch up to that thing, right? It always seems like we're one step behind. But when it comes to AI, it's not too far out of the gate for us to catch up and learn and work alongside our students. So that's one of the reasons why I'm really happy to be here with you today, and why Dana asked me to be here, is because you can still be on par with your students when it comes to AI. I'm digging into some of these tools and even just tinkering with them enough to have an intelligent conversation with your students will go a long way in helping them to contextualize what is okay and what is not okay. So as you're looking at, what you can do as the educator, this is like the hallmark of all good educators, not just when it comes to AI tools, but being adaptable is your greatest asset. I know you are all experts at that, right? When the fire alarm gets pulled and you're like, oh gosh, what do we do now? We adapt. When a new student is added to our classroom and we're in week 8 of the 9 weeks, we adapt and we make it happen. This is nothing new. Okay, so I want you to know it's okay. We are all in this thing together. You have me as a resource. You have Dana as a resource. Being adaptable, not just with like your lesson planning, but with some of the ways that you go about setting up your classroom is going to help you greatly. So Magic School has some tools that can help you. We talked about that AI resistant assignment suggestion. They have a DOK generator, which I think is really slick. They also have a multi-step assignment generator, right? So it's asking students to do more than something that they could Google or something that they could just go to AI and say, what's this thing? And today it produces that for you. So creating those multi-step things is really going to help you quite a bit. As we think about adaptability, I do also want to mention that it's going to be to your benefit to look back at some of the assignments that you may have been using for the last year, the last 2 years, the last 5 years, that home run lesson that you do every year and you have done for the last 10. You have to look at it through a new lens in the world of AI. And I know that that's a difficult conversation. And I know that that seems like it's one more thing for you, but we have to think about, how are my students going to use AI to complete this thing? Okay. Because if you aren't thinking it, your kids are thinking it and they're going to do that thing. And so we have to use this to try and stay one step ahead of them. All right. There are other things that can help you, right? So you're not in this alone. If it were me and I were in my own classroom teaching students, I would do literally everything in Google Docs that I own through Google Classroom. Okay, I'd make a copy for each student. I want to know on the ground floor, this was a blank document when it began, because as that smart, savvy, adaptable teacher, I'm going to look at the version history on anything that I think might be questionable, right? You are the expert of your students. You know those students and their capabilities more than anyone else. So you know that if a student is performing here and they turn in work that is way up here, right off my camera screen, you can't even see it, but there's probably something fishy going on. May not even be that, they're using AI. Maybe they found something else. Maybe they copied it from somewhere else. But that version history is going to help us to tell the story. So essentially, I can go into that version history and I can see the things that are happening. So I'm going to jump back over here onto the doc and go to File and Version History and see Version History. And this is going to allow me to basically go behind the scenes and see all of the changes that have been made. And so on this document, you can see that this is like a running thing that you guys use from meeting to meeting, which is awesome. But if I wanted to, I could jump back in time at any moment. And on October 9th at 2:45 p.m., I can go through and look for those purple areas. And I'm not going to waste your time, trying to search for all of those. But anything that is like highlighted in that purple is something that is new to this document and is showing me that change. So as you're looking at the things that your students are working on, anything that is like giant chunks, right? More likely than not came from somewhere else. Again, doesn't mean that that's AI generated. Could be that they found it somewhere else. But basically, the idea is that you are going to be able to see, wherever these giant chunks of text are added, and use that as evidence to have a conversation with your students. One of the knee-jerk reaction things that we have been seeing here in education is teachers say one of two things. They're either saying, I need you to block this tool, right? I don't want my students using this AI, and I need a detector to figure out if my kids are using AI. Universally, we are seeing, and I think it's this next one, that AI detectors are hot garbage. They are so bad actually detecting AI use. This is very specific to the world language community. What we're seeing is students who may be speaking a world language or who may be using English not as their first language typically are writing in a certain pattern that matches the way that AI typically writes. So if you take, one of those texts from, like I said, a student who, English may not be their first language, if we take that text and put it into a detector, it's going to set off those red flags, meaning like this student's using AI. This isn't their work, with a percentage score that says absolutely nothing about that actual student work. So for me, if I'm having a conversation with students or parents or administrators or whatever it might be, to me, it's much more valuable to have that version history to be able to say, hey, listen, your document's really great. The thing that you're working on, I really like that. But I want to talk about this chunk here. Okay. This doesn't seem like you. Can you tell me more about it? Right. That to me is much better, a much easier, like much friendlier, we're all in this together kind of conversation with your student, rather than I put this text into an AI detector. It said 84% of this was plagiarized. Therefore, you're getting a failing score for this. Right. I would much rather come at it from, that perspective of we're in this together. This just doesn't look like work from you. I actually have the hard evidence in my back pocket to show you if you're really going to make me show you that this isn't you. So I would much rather have that to use in conversations with principals and parents, and then ultimately your students too. Okay. I see a question from Allison. She says, is that possible to see if we don't have Google Classroom? It is. So the version history is always a thing that's generated within any Google product. So docs, slide sheets, forms, you name it, they all have that version history log. The reason why I said I would generate it from Classroom is because there's one button when you upload a document that basically says create a version for all the students that are in your classroom, or create a copy for each student. And it all of a sudden fires that off for all 30 with you clicking one button. The other difference is if you have students who, like, we'll use this as an example. This is the second time maybe that I've been on the world language document that Dana shared at the start of this meeting. And so I am seeing the picture of this document from Dana's perspective. So she could very easily say something like let's pretend that she were my student. She could very easily, copy this information from a different document, paste all of that in one shot. And then as the teacher, I see one massive change rather than the beat for beat change that I would like to see, or that I would expect to see as a person who is originally on that document. As the teacher, I want to see that. I want to see all the imperfections. I want to see all the moments where the students went back in and edited. I want to see that beat for beat, right? Basically, whenever a student does an action and stops is when one of those save points is generated. So I don't know about you, but typically I can get like a sentence or two typed before I kind of stop and have to think about what's the next thing that I want to say. Your students
Can
are
I
even
ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead,
So,
Allison.
like, we have Schoology. So
Mhm.
it seems like, is there a way to have, and whenever I have the kids, if I have them do a slideshow or whatever, and they turn it in, Schoology reformats and that goes away. Are you familiar with Schoology? Is there a way to get the Google Doc in there? I don't want like 145 kids to share with me 145. I mean, do you know a way to work around that if you don't have Google Classroom and just Schoology?
Sure. So I'm not as familiar with Schoology as what I am with Google Classroom. Are you saying that when a student, like, what are they working in, or what program are they working in
Well,
when they
I mean,
turn something in with Schoology?
yeah. So if I have them make a document, let's say I have them type up an essay, which honestly, I just have them write in class because of the level I teach. But in years
Mhm.
past, we've also done presentations and I want them to have pictures and everything ready. Well, when they submit it, they have a Google Drive app in their Schoology They click on it, it uploads the actual item from Google. And then the formatting is all different. It actually is not very good, which is why I've stopped doing specifically the slideshow. But I have had kids write a lot in the past, and some of them, their handwriting is horrible. I can't read it, which is sad.
Sure.
But,
So to turn
but
in,
what happens is that Google Resource app uploads it as if it would be a file upload.
sure.
I
So
just don't
it's a
know.
moment in time.
Right. And I didn't know if there was a different way to have something submitted in Schoology. Maybe another teacher knows. But that's a
And so,
problem with Schoology.
sure. Let me ask you this. Can students submit their work in different ways? So like, are they able to like share a link with you, or is there like a discussion area where they can upload their file
I
and
could do a
also include?
discussion area with a link. So even if I'm just view only, can I see version history?
That's a good question. I will make a note of that, and then I'll communicate that to Dana.
Okay. Sorry to give a hard,
Because
I'm just trying to work
no,
out how we could do this effectively, given the tools our school wants us to use.
yeah, absolutely. So the reason why I was asking about the reason why I was asking about what they could do or how they could submit it is they could just open it up with like shared access to you as an editor, because I just typed in while we were talking, and you will not be able to see the version history if you are a view only. So they would have to then open it up as like edit and then uncheck the box, or they could just make it openly editable for anyone online to find, knowing that basically unless they have a link to the thing, they're not going to find it anyway. And then put it in that discussion area for you within Schoology to make that happen.
Okay.
Yeah,
That makes
it's a
sense. And that
really
needs to be a requirement that it's viewable. I mean, editable. Okay. Thank you for taking the time to answer that.
yeah, of course. I'm glad you asked. And say it's a really weird quirk as we're thinking about all the different platforms that that are on and available for sure. All right, so as we continue this conversation, if you don't believe me about the AI detectors and how terrible they are, I have an educational doctor who can convince you. And so if you are interested in learning more, there's a really nice document by Dr. Tori Trust. She is brilliant, has been putting out a lot of stuff, been at the forefront of AI, and is just really, really wonderful. So if you want to see what an AI detector looks like, again, I don't think you should be using them, but if you're interested, I've included a couple in the speaker notes for you, just so that way you can kind of check it out and try and see if you can trick it yourself. It's really not that difficult to do, right? We know that we can ask AI to do different things, such as, I want it to rewrite as if it were a human, right? You can say those kinds of things and it changes and it morphs the way that it's presented. You can say, I want you to write this as if you are a fourth grader in Ohio, using 3 imperfections and 4 misspelled words and 2 commas in the wrong place, and it'll do all of those things too, right? And I am the one telling you this, meaning all of your kids know these tricks too. I always think of myself as like that kid in class, so I'm here to help you trying to figure out how your kids are going to try and outsmart you, and that's how I would do it. So definitely make sure that that you're being on the lookout for those. Like I said, this all comes down to knowing your students and knowing their capabilities. Okay, and that's something that I know that you are all experts in. Are there any other larger questions about AI or things that I can help you with? We've already had a couple of really great ones, but are there any other questions before we put a bow on this? All right, so to wrap up, let's talk about the different areas that we've discussed. It was a lot in the last 5 minutes and 9 seconds. Dana, go ahead.
A question did come in
Uh-huh.
before you close us out.
Yeah.
Do
Do they all work well in other languages? So the short answer, Liz, is some do and some don't. So this is where like I really want you to get in and kind of tinker and see. Some of them have like translatable buttons where you can say, I want you to, produce an answer that's in this language, or I want to talk or I want the AI, like let's use ChatGPT, produce a text in Spanish or in this specific dialect of Spanish that is about a kid running with a red balloon, and it would do that for you, right? So some of the tools have it, some of the tools don't. I know ChatGPT can, I know Magic School can do different languages, I know Diffit can do different languages. The idea here is that basically if some tools are out there that have certain features, the other ones are going to work as hard as they possibly can to catch up. Right now, for lack of a better word, like the AI game is kind of like an arms race where the big companies are trying to put out like the biggest, best product that they possibly can to bury all the little guys. But the little guys all seem to want their own AI tool so that they can stay relevant. Because if they don't have an AI tool, then they don't feel like they're relevant or a part of the conversation or future forward thinking. So even if tools don't have that component right now, in days, weeks, months, I would expect that to become a pretty universal thing. Great question.
Also,
all right, so, Dana.
Okay, sorry. I recently participated in the OFLA AI meetup that they had a week or two ago, and I have notes from that, and all the tools that they shared were tools that Matt has already shared with us, but I'll go through and sift through my notes. I don't want to share outright my notes because I took snapshots of some of their slides, and I know it's like membership only thing, so I don't want to be disrespectful of that. So I'll go through my notes and clean them up, and then I'll just dump them into the agenda under Matt's name there too. So where I have the Diffit under his, that's the PowerPoint they shared, that's in the newsletter, that's not just membership only. I'll go through my notes, clean them up, and then add those in there also.
All right, very cool. All right, so as we're looking at AI, right, and we're thinking about that larger landscape, whether we like it or not, we're in it. We are in the age of AI. The future is now. All those movies that we saw where the little robots are overtaking the human race, we're not at that level. I hope we never get to that level. But the chat bots that are available to us now are pretty cool. There are a lot of competing AI tools that are out there. We talked about some of my favorites in ChatGPT and I almost said Bard again, and Gemini. It's going to take me a while to get used to that one. And Magic School. For my money, I think Magic School is the easiest, has like cutting to the chase, creating the best things for you. So I definitely like for you to take a look at that one. There are so many wonderful things that are out there and that are available to you as educators. So definitely make sure that you're checking out that best of the rest section. When it comes to academic integrity, you know your students better than anyone. So if something isn't quite passing the smell test, then it might be a good time to have a conversation with your students. That's nothing different than what you've always done with your students, right? It's just AI is adding another layer to the conversation. So getting to know your students, getting to know their capabilities, and the kind of work that they produce is going to be to your best benefit. And more than anything, we're in a really weird moment in education, and that's kind of fun and exciting and also sort of scary, and it gives you the butterflies when you think about it, but we're all in this together. And so there are people out there like myself who are here. I'm more than happy to help you kind of navigate this space and to allow you, a safe space to ask your questions, right? We are all in this together. That's right, Dana said, collective efficacy. So I really appreciate all the questions that came through. If you have further questions, please continue to ask. This is my contact information. If you wanted to pass those through Dana, I'm more than happy to answer those too, but you can get to me directly here through this email. If you want to have a meeting, you can use my booking page. We can talk more about it, whether that's a planning meeting, whether that's a team of teachers or a grade level of teachers, and you want to get together and talk about these things. I'm more than happy to do all of that with you. Okay. And with that, Dana, I went way over time. I'm really sorry, but I'm happy to hand it back over to you.